opened the door, and the house answered with only the hum of the furnace and the slow tick of the living room clock. Our wedding photo lay face down on the credenza like it was tired of looking at us. Her ring sat on the little ceramic stand shaped like a pine cone, catching the lamplight like a dare. And on the rug, with his back against our couch, was Chris. He looked up at me the way a boy looks up at a school principal. "Sam," he said, quiet. I still had snow on my shoulders, crusted at the seams of my jacket. I had been pushing a plow for 12 hours straight, and the city still wore white like an old coat. Outside, the wind shoved at the eaves. Inside, the lamps made a soft circle of gold. This was the place I always told myself was warm, no matter what the street was doing. It was the one promise I kept to my childhood self. "Where's Hannah?" I asked. "Upstairs," he said, looking toward the hallway like it could save him. I think she's packing a bag." I set my gloves on the radiator, palms up like two small flags of surrender. I walked to the credenza and touched the back of the picture frame as if it would be hot. It was cool wood. We had stood on that beach in June, both of us squinting, the minister's voice lost in wind and gulls, and I had thought, this is the start of the life we said we wanted at 12. We had talked about a big table and kids in winter boots and a house that smelled like stew and wet mittens. I wanted a crowd. I wanted a life you had to raise your voice over. The stairs creaked. Hannah came down with a small duffel. She was in the blue sweater I got her on our first Christmas, the one that made her eyes look like the lake in June. Her hair was pulled back with the same elastic she wore to shelve books at the library. She had always been practical with beautiful edges. "Hey," she said. Her voice sat on top of the air and didn't go anywhere. "Hey," I said. I did not look at Chris because the person I had to look at was her. I just got off shift. "I know," she said. "I heard the truck." She set the duffel down and reached for the ring. She didn't put it on. She just held it like it was a coin she might spend. "We need to talk," she said. I wanted to say we had 3 kids upstairs with crooked teeth and bigger backpacks than their backs, and a calendar with scribbles on every day, and a dog that drooled on the doormat in summer. I wanted to say we had already said vows, and we were not supposed to say them again now like they were fresh fruit. But I didn't say anything. The wind did all the talking, slipping under the door in a hard sigh. Chris stood up slow, like a crane lifting something fragile. "I should go," he said. "I think so," I said, very steady. He nodded like a man receiving a sentence he'd known was coming. He hesitated, then put a hand on Hannah's shoulder and took it back as if he'd touched a hot stove. Then he went, head down, past me, past our wedding frame, past the pinecone dish, into the weather. The door shut and the wind became a wall again. Hannah and I stood in the soft gold lamplight. It made everything look gentle, and it was not. "I stayed," I said. "The word surprised me. When you said go, years ago, when you got the diagnosis and decided you were a broken thing and I deserved a whole one, I stayed, not as a favor to you, as a promise I made to myself when I was 10 years old and heard my own father leave at dawn and never come back. I stayed." "I know," she said, and for a second her face did that thing it used to do when I read aloud to her and the story got to the part where somebody chooses love even though it's hard. "I know you did, and I am not standing here because you failed." "Then what are we doing here?" I asked. "Why is our wedding picture face down like it needs to sleep?" She looked at the frame as if seeing it for the first time. Then she put the ring back on the pine cone and pressed her palms to the cold stone of the kitchen island. We had picked that stone because it reminded us of a lake in winter. It sure did now. "I'm lost," she said. "I'm lost in rolls." I waited. The wind sighed again, and the house made the small pops it makes when it's cold enough to test old wood. Somewhere upstairs, one of our kids rolled over and the bunk bed creaked, that comforting sound that says, "This is a home, not a stage." "I am the one who has dinner containers labeled," she said, half a laugh. "No joy in it. I am the librarian who remembers everyone's favorite author. I am the mother who sends notes on time and brings cut oranges and bobby pins. I am the wife who waits for the truck to rumble up and warms the soup. I am useful. I don't know if I have been anything else in years." "You're Hannah," I said. "You're my person." She swallowed like the word had edges. "I need a minute to be just, Hannah, not anyone's mother or wife or useful." I looked at the duffel. "With him?" She flinched. "He listens when I speak like this. He doesn't tell me it's the winter talking." "I didn't," I said. "I never would." She closed her eyes. "I need to be gone for a while. I need to see if my head is making this up or if there's a piece of me on a shore I haven't visited in 10 years. "Will you come back?" I asked. The clock ticked loud right then, and I wanted to throw it into the snow. "I don't know," she said. Her voice was a crack in ice, not loud, very dangerous. What I heard behind her words was wind. I heard it like a radio, static that used to be warmth. I heard late nights in the plow when the world is only white and blade and engine and the edges of things. I heard the year we sat in a clinic and the doctor spoke in numbers that my hands tried to catch. I heard the day she said, "Go, I am not the person you married," and I said, "Then I will marry who you are." I heard the way our kids say "Dad," long and relieved, when the truck pulls up and I step out with snow in my beard and a bag of grocery store donuts for being brave during a storm. "Okay," I said. "Okay, but when you go, go all the way. Don't leave a foot in this house and a foot in that one. Don't lay your ring on the stand like a lighthouse and expect me to steer by it. If you need the lake, go to the lake. I'll cover the shore." She cried then quiet, and the sight of it did not make me rush forward. I have learned in my job that sometimes the safest thing is to go slow. You push too fast, and you push snow into doorways. "I'll tell the kids I'm staying at Aunt Lou's for a few nights," she said. "Don't make me the villain to them." "You're their mother," I said. "They need you to be human, not a statue." She nodded. She picked up the duffel. She looked at me like I had both hurt her and held her, which is the true story of every marriage I know. Then she walked out into a winter that felt like it would never end. When the door closed, the house exhaled. I picked up the wedding frame and turned it face up. There we were in summer with white sand on our toes and the taste of lemon cake still in our mouths. I set it back down carefully. I did not touch the ring. The pine cone held it like a small truth. That night, I slept on the couch because the couch has never lied to me. In the morning, the city radio said schools were closed and asked people to stay off the roads if they could. I was already pulling on my boots. Plow drivers don't get snow days. We make them. I left a note on the kitchen counter for the kids in the same gentle block letters I use when I am writing directions on a paper towel. "Be kind to each other. Cereal in the cabinet. I'll be back as soon as I can. Love you, bigger than the storm." When I fired up the truck, the engine shuddered and then found its voice. The blade lifted like a jaw. I took my route down Maple, up 3rd, past the library with its lion statues chewing snow. I thought about Hannah in there with her warm cardigan and the way she remembers a patron whose mother died 2 years ago and quietly hands them a book about grief without making it a show. The idea that she could be lost in rolls sat in my chest like a coin. I could feel its weight. I wasn't sure yet if it paid for anything, but I knew it was real. If you spend a life waiting for winter, you learn to love the simple math of it. You go one street at a time. You push away what you can. You leave a neat edge for people to get to their doors. It is not a hero's work. But when a mother with a stroller waves at you and mouths thank you, you feel as tall as any statue in any city. By noon, I had pushed the same 4 alleys 3 times because the wind kept saying, "Try again." That afternoon, when the gusts finally took a breath, I turned the truck toward home. I stopped for milk and bread and impulse oranges. At the register, I swiped my card, and a little window on the machine blinked and asked me if I wanted cash back like the world still believed in small overflow. When I unlocked our door, warm light reached out again. The dog wagged like a low broom. The kids were building a fort out of kitchen chairs and blankets, and the oldest, Ellie, told me it was a reading cave and no grown-ups could come in without snacks. "Deal," I said, handing a whole bag of oranges to the cave guard. She looked at me the way a queen looks at a subject who brings tribute. Behind her, the younger two were arguing about whether a stuffed moose could read. I cut the tops off 3 plastic cups and filled them with orange wedges and set them on the edge of the cave like offerings to a benevolent god. "Where's Mom?" Ellie asked, in that too casual voice kids use when they already know a thing they wish they didn't. "At Aunt Lou's for a few nights," I said, simple as a weather report. "She needed some quiet." "Okay," she said. "Children say okay like a stone sent across water. You don't know yet how many skips it will get. It's your job to stand at the shore and watch." That night, I set the alarm for 3 a.m. because the city had asked for one last pass before dawn. I lay in the quiet house and listened to the radiators talk to each other like old men in a diner. I thought of Hannah's face when she said rolls. I thought of Chris's hand on her shoulder, that quick burn. I thought of the way she had put the ring on the pine cone like she wanted a photograph of it, not a life with it. I got up and moved through the house like a night watchman, touching the back of the couch, the kids' door, the refrigerator handle with the magnet that says "Eat Together" that Ellie made in 2nd grade. Under the magnet, I saw a receipt wedged corner first. It was from a home goods store near the lake. 2 bath towels, a shower curtain with tiny boats, a floor mat in blue. The total looked like the sort of splurge you make when you are about to step into a new life and you want it to feel like a hotel. I slid the receipt farther under the magnet without thinking and then pulled it back out and looked at it until the numbers were just ink. I'm a driver, not a detective. I didn't go looking for a trail. The trail lay down in front of me like a rug. At 3, the alarm pecked at my ear and I went back to the truck. The streets were quieter. Smoke came from chimney tops like speech bubbles. I plowed past the lake and saw the lights of the apartments on Shoreline Road. People who lived by the lake liked to leave their curtains open, like being near water meant you didn't have to hide. I told myself not to look too long at any window. It is a strange thing to feel your life narrowing and widening at the same time. Hannah walked out with a duffel, and the part of the road called marriage narrowed to one lane, then to a path, then to my own footprints. And at the same time, the part of the road called fatherhood widened until it was the only route on the map. You think these two will be the same road forever? Sometimes they are not. In the days after that night, the house did what it always does. It ate groceries, it spit out laundry, it grew the little piles of paper that children breed. Hannah sent texts that said things like, "I'm at Lou's, and I'll pick up the kids Thursday, and can you send Ellie's math folder?" She did not write about hearts. She wrote about logistics. Logistics are the bandages people use when they cut their lives. I took the kids to school in a truck that still smelled faintly of diesel in winter. I took a thermos of coffee and waved at the crossing guard. I stopped by the library to return a book that was already overdue and saw Hannah shelving in the back corner, her hand running along the spines the way I used to run my hand along the curve of her shoulder when she slept. She looked up and smiled, and it was the smile you give to a neighbor you like, polite and warm and the opposite of a fight. I wanted to set the whole situation down like a heavy grocery bag and hear the goods thump. Instead, I gave her the wave you give a person you once could not stop touching. At night, when the kids were asleep and the dog snored like an old man, I made a list in my head of what I knew. I knew she had said she was lost. I knew she had a receipt with boats on a shower curtain. I knew Chris had sat on my rug. I knew the ring had slept on a pine cone. I knew the winter was long and the spring would be muddy. I knew I could do mornings and nights in the school pickup line even if my truck smelled like road salt forever. I did not know whether we were at the beginning of a pause or the end of a marriage. My hands were empty and full at the same time. When your job is to drive into storms, you learn to see inches as victories. I stopped trying to see the whole map. I just did the next thing. I learned to make a chicken soup that everyone ate. I learned to braid Ellie's hair badly and then less badly. I learned that if I put a heating pad at the foot of the bed 15 minutes before bedtime, the 2 little ones would run upstairs without being told twice. I learned that grief is not a task, it is a weather. Sometimes you plow, sometimes you sit with your lights on and wait until you can see again. On a Thursday, Hannah came by in the late afternoon, and the way she came into our house told me something that the words had not yet said. She was a visitor. She was careful. She set her tote bag down and took off her boots and lined them up like a person in a museum. She hugged the kids hard, and they clung the way kids cling to parents who have become a schedule instead of a planet. She looked at the wedding picture on the credenza and pressed the edge of the frame with her finger and then let go. "Can we talk?" she asked, eyes on the dog whose tail thumped a composite soundtrack. "In the kitchen," I said. We stood at the island. She wrapped her fingers around a coffee mug without drinking. The mug said, "World's okayest cook, because I am honest about original sins." "I put a deposit on a place," she said. She did not look at me when she said it. She looked at the Pinecone dish. The ring was not there. It was on her finger. That ring is a weather vane. You think it points north until the wind moves? "It's by the lake," she said. "Small, 1 bedroom. I can put a fold-out in the living room for the kids on my nights. It's quiet. I need that." "Okay," I said. The clock ticked like a metronome in a practice room. "I want you to have the life that makes your heart behave. I also want to not be a bench you sit on when the trail gets muddy." "I'm not asking you to be," she said. "I'm asking you to let me be honest. I can't be your wife and a person I don't recognize myself in. I can't be a mother who is only a mother." "We built this life," I said, and I felt my voice rising both in pitch and in history. I took a breath. "No, that's not a sentence. We adopted 3 kids together because we were the 2 people who could spell home and then make it. You were the one who told me to go when you got the diagnosis. You said you were broken. You said I should find someone who could give me blood children and a clean road. I told you I didn't marry a womb. I married a person. I stayed, and now you are telling me you want the lake. I am telling you I am drowning on land, she said, and I had to give her this. She knows how to make a sentence that cuts and tells the truth at the same time. I am telling you I am tired of being the adult in every room. I am telling you Chris is... Don't, I said. Not like this. Don't write his name into the story before we finish the chapter we are in. He is not the cause, she said. He was, someone who made me remember I still have a body, not just a calendar. He is a person who listened to the voice in me that says I need a minute, but I am not leaving for him. I am leaving because I can't see myself when I look at our life sometimes, and I need to, even if it's ugly. I told you at the start, I would not make you the villain, I said. Don't make me the warden. We stared at each other over the cold stone. This is what a marriage looks like when it becomes a small tide. It recedes. There is salt on everything. Fish bones show. You wish you had left certain rocks unturned, and yet you are grateful to know where the rocks actually are so you don't break your foot walking. I'll call a lawyer, she said, as if she were saying, I'll call the dentist. We'll do it simple. We won't fight. We won't fight, I said, and I made it a prayer. The kids came in right then, loud with a fight over a pencil that had a small clown on the eraser. Hannah crouched and solved it with that librarian magic she uses on overdue patrons and stubborn toddlers. Ellie climbed onto a stool and asked Hannah if she could still go to the library on Wednesdays and if the lake apartment had a view and if the dog could visit, and Hannah answered the way you answer questions when the truth and kindness are on opposite sides of the room. She said, yes, sometimes, maybe, we'll see. That night, after she left and the house took in her absence like a second winter, I sat with the dog and tried to picture the next year. It came in small images. I saw myself tying boots and taping school forms to the door and writing checks to a person with a last name we used to share. I saw a tiny living room with a couch that folds and a lake that shines at night because rich people who have never had to carry a snow shovel love lamps. I saw us at the school play, sharing a program, saying the same polite things strangers say to each other when the lights come up. Good job, see you next time. I saw myself driving a truck under a sky that didn't care about my plans and doing a job that leaves clean lines behind you. I knew I'd come home at the end of those days to a house that needed me. The legal part was as tender as you can make a surgery. Papers got signed. Second graders learned to print a new version of their family on forms. The dog took turns sleeping at the foot of 3 beds instead of 1. We set a schedule that looked like a chessboard. We bought a second set of snow pants for the lake apartment, which made the kids feel like they were rich because 2 snow pants means options. The people who love you fall into 3 camps in a divorce. There are those who want blood. There are those who want you to forgive fast so they don't have to keep hearing about it. And there are the rare ones, the ones you hold on to forever, who sit with you at a diner at 7 in the morning and drink coffee until it's not hot anymore and say, you're allowed to feel all of this, and you're allowed to be proud of yourself for not breaking anything on your way out. I tried to be the third kind of person for Hannah too, not because she deserved a parade, but because we were 2 adults who did something hard without smashing it against the wall first. The psychology people would say I was trying to make meaning instead of just replaying the footage in my head. I don't know what to call it. I call it choosing to be the kind of man my kids can brag about in categories that don't make noise. Winter loosened its jaw at the edges. The city got muddy in familiar ways. I did a run with a volunteer group that clears paths and parks in spring, and the sound of shovels hitting thaw felt like a band tuning. One morning, I stopped by the lake apartments because the kids had forgotten the bag with their tap shoes at Hannah's. She met me in the lobby. She had cut her hair. She was wearing a gray sweater and looked small and tired and very much like a person. Do you hate me? She asked, because what a terrible thing to hold alone. I don't know what I feel most days, I said, but hate isn't it? What is it? She asked. It's weather, I said. Some days it stings. Some days it only makes me zip my coat higher. Some days I don't notice until I take my hands out of my pockets and they're stiff. She nodded. He's not in my life, she said, sudden like a confession at the wrong church. It wasn't. It turned out I wanted a mirror, not him. Okay, I said. I did not want the details. My body knew this as truth. I hope you find the thing that lets you see yourself without needing to smash anything else to do it. Me too, she said. You look grounded. I'm tired, I said, smiling, but I'm upright. We walked out to opposite sides of the parking lot like the beginning of a dance. The lake threw light at us the way a friend throws rolled-up paper. I watched a man on a bench scroll his phone with his shoulders hunched, and I wanted to put a blanket over everyone. Spring delivered the spectacle it always does, messy and showy. The kids did a school play about explorers who got lost on purpose to see what they'd find. The costumes were so bad they came around to great. We sat on plastic chairs in the gym and pretended the sound system worked. Hannah sat on one side of me, not touching, not far. When Ellie looked for us from the stage, she found both our faces in the same row. She smiled in relief. "It's a map," I thought. "We are drawing a map on the fly, and our kids are reading it as they run." At intermission, Hannah and I shared a program because the volunteer at the door had run out. We talked about the dog's allergy and the price of strawberries and how Ms. Blake was the best music teacher in the district, and we kept our voices flat as the lake on a still morning. "How's the apartment?" I asked. "Quiet," she said. "Sometimes too quiet." "Our house isn't," I said, and we both laughed. The old kind of laugh, a little mean to ourselves, a little kind to the other. The divorce came through in July, an email with attached bark. I was at work in the yard, another kind of plow, this one green, and I read the PDF on my phone and then stood in the sun long enough for the dog to look up at me and tilt his head like a question mark. I watered the tomatoes. I went inside and made 3 grilled cheeses. I texted Hannah a screenshot and she sent back a heart and then another text that said simply, "Thank you for not making me bleed." In August, I took the kids to a small carnival by the ball fields. They ate cotton candy until their faces looked like something out of a winter storm, and they held onto my arms on the Ferris wheel and yelled down at the whole town like it was ours. I looked out over the lake at the apartments with their neat lights and thought, there are people in there who think neatness will save them. I wish them well. I think sometimes it's the mess that does the saving. It makes room for air. When the next winter came, the city remembered how to be itself. I put chains on the truck tires. I taped the kids' Christmas drawings to the dashboard until the cab looked like a traveling art show. I drove through nights that sounded like truth. Hannah and I talked by text. We traded nights when one of us was sick or the road had other plans. We did not ask each other who we were kissing or if we were sleeping. We respected the fence. Fences keep cows safe in winter. They also keep the neighborhood from stepping on your tulips in spring. There were moments when I wanted to be angry. When I came home from a storm and the sink was full of bowls and the dog had tracked in an entire neighborhood of mud and someone had left a popsicle stick on the radiator as a science experiment, I wanted to throw the stick through a window as a statement. But I washed the bowls and ran the vacuum and showed the 2 littles how to wipe a paw with a towel. I put the stick in the trash like an adult. It is tempting to rewrite history so it doesn't hurt. It is tempting to tell yourself you were blind and she was cruel, and that makes you a martyr, and people love martyrs. I did not want to be a statue in anyone's park. I wanted to be the man at the end of the driveway who waves at the bus driver because the bus driver is a person working. I wanted to be the father my kids would grow up and call on a Tuesday, not because anything was wrong, but because I had become a habit they liked. In the second year, Hannah started coming to more things. She clapped at soccer in a coat that actually fit the weather. She baked cookies that tasted like a recipe she used to use, and she left the plate at the door without stepping in because she understood a boundary is not a wall. She dated nobody for a while. Then she dated someone I never met because I didn't ask. The kid said he had a canoe. Good for him, I thought. I hope he knows how to put the life vest under the seats. Chris and I avoided each other the way people avoid mirrors and bad lighting. I saw him once at the grocery store buying a rotisserie chicken, and he looked at me like someone had stolen his pen. We nodded like coworkers who used to be in the same department. I did not want to be his enemy. I wanted to be nothing to him. Nothing is a gift too. The day Ellie turned 11, she asked me to tell her the story of how we became a family. I told her the one I tell on birthdays. I said, your mother and I looked at each other in a room with chairs that make you feel like you should be quiet, and we said, yes, we want to be the people these children run toward. I told her we ran toward her. I did not tell her anything else. The rest is adult weather, and kids deserve seasons they understand. I won't pretend there were not nights I sat in the truck with the engine off and my hands on the wheel and thought, what if I had said this? What if I had done that? What if I had kissed her more and folded more towels and learned the names of the patrons at the library the way she learned the names of the men who plow her street? That is a game that eats you. I try not to play it. When it starts, I look at my calendar. There is always a math night or a field trip or a dentist appointment that needs a signature. Paper pulls you back to earth. If you are a man who has been told to leave because someone else's heart is a broken compass, I will tell you what the old men at the diner told me. Do the dishes. Keep the car running. Don't teach your kids that love is a slam. Make your bed. Eat soup that tastes like something your mother wished she had had time to make. Go to bed on time. Cry in the garage if you need to because the garage is used to water. If you want revenge, go run a mile and then another until your lungs give you a better idea. If you want justice, learn that it sometimes looks like you never smashed somebody's favorite mug. We divorced without shouting. I am proud of that. Pride is not a bad word when it's about a thing you did on purpose. I stayed with the ruts and the lists and the small cold mornings that make a whole winter. The kids know this as a fact. Dad always comes. That sentence is worth almost everything I thought. Marriage owed me and did not pay. Hannah lives at the lake, and the light in her windows makes the water look like something a painter would have trouble getting right. We talk at plays and conferences like ice looks when the wind is down, flat, true, reflecting but not swallowing. On the first storm of this year, the radio said blizzard before dusk. The dispatcher's voice was a little excited like a kid. I filled the thermos and put 2 extra pairs of socks in my bag and kissed the dog between the eyes because he thinks that is good luck. Before I left, I stood in the doorway of each kid's room and looked at their sleeping bodies the way you look at a mountain before you climb it again. I thought about my 10-year-old self. I wanted to tell him, we did it. We made the house with warm lamps. It isn't the exact house we thought. But it is a house, and it is warm. I opened the door to the night, and the storm gave me its first mouthful. I am not a prophet. I am a man with a blade on the front of his truck and people counting on him to make a line where there was no line 5 minutes ago. That is enough. 2 questions for you. If you came home and found the picture face down and the ring shining like a lighthouse, would you turn the frame over and try to steer by it? Or would you go into the storm and trust the road to teach you where you stand? And how much of yourself would you spend to keep someone else from feeling lost if the cost was your own map? If this story kept you company, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps more than you think.